The cargo ship Rusty Bucket tumbled out of hyperspace like a drunk person falling off a bar stool. Captain Sarah Chen rubbed her eyes and looked at the navigation screen. Nothing looked familiar. The stars were wrong, the planets were in weird places, and her GPS was showing error messages in 3 different languages. "Well, that's not good," she said, taking a sip of cold coffee from a mug that said, "World's okayest captain." Engineer Rodriguez poked his head up from behind a control panel where he had been trying to fix the coffee machine for the past 6 hours. "Did we make the jump to Proxima Station?" "Nope. We're somewhere else entirely. Somewhere very, very else." Rodriguez shrugged and went back to hitting the coffee machine with a wrench. "As long as we're not dead, I guess it's fine." Communications Officer Park was busy taking selfies by the window. "Hey guys, check this out. There are like 1,000,000 giant crystal ships out there. They look pretty cool, I guess." Chen looked out the window and saw exactly what Park had described. Enormous ships that looked like they were made of purple and blue crystals surrounded them. Each ship was the size of a small city and covered in scary-looking weapons. The ships had arranged themselves in what was clearly a battle formation designed to make anyone looking at them wet their pants in terror. "Huh," Chen said. "That's different." The radio crackled to life with a voice that sounded like gravel being mixed in a blender. "Attention, primitive vessel. You have entered the sacred space of the Zephyrian Dominion. Prepare to face the wrath of Thekatar the Merciless. Your species will kneel before our might, or be reduced to cosmic dust." Chen picked up the radio microphone. "Hi there. Sorry to bother you. We're just passing through. Do you happen to know if there are any decent truck stops around here? We're getting low on snacks, and our coffee machine is broken." There was a long silence on the radio. "What?" the voice finally asked. "Truck stops. You know, places where travelers can get food, fuel, maybe use a clean bathroom. Our last stop was 3 systems ago, and Park ate all the good granola bars." "Hey, those were communal granola bars," Park said, not looking up from her phone where she was posting pictures of the crystal ships with captions like "Weird Space Traffic Jam" and "Probably late for work now." Admiral Thekatar the Merciless stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the communications panel like it had personally insulted his mother. In his 300 years of conquering star systems, he had never encountered a response like this. Species usually responded to his arrival with screaming, begging, or at least some kind of fear. These creatures were asking about snacks. "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "perhaps they do not understand the gravity of their situation." Thekatar activated the radio again. "Foolish beings! I am Thekatar the Merciless, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, destroyer of the weak, bringer of eternal darkness. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." Chen turned to Rodriguez. "Does this guy sound like he's trying really hard to be scary to you?" "Yeah, he's got that whole dramatic villain thing going on. Very theatrical. I bet he practices those speeches in the mirror." Chen keyed the radio again. "Look, Mr. the Merciless, I'm sure you're very important and scary and all that, but we're just cargo haulers trying to make a living. We've got a schedule to keep, and frankly, this whole kneel before me thing is kind of holding us up. Are there tolls for using this space? Because if there are, we need receipts for our taxes." The alien admiral felt something he had never experienced before. It might have been confusion. It might have been an aneurysm. His reputation for striking fear into the hearts of entire civilizations was being treated like a customer service. "Complaint? Tolls?" he managed to ask. "Yeah, you know, fees for using the space lanes. Some systems charge for passage. Others have free highways but expensive parking. What's your setup here?" Park looked up from her phone. "Also, do you guys have Wi-Fi? I'm trying to upload these photos, but the signal out here is terrible." Thekatar turned to his communications officer. "What is a Wi-Fi?" "I believe it is some form of primitive data transmission, sir." "Sir," another officer interrupted, Our scanners are detecting something unusual about their vessel. What kind of unusual? Well, sir, their ship appears to be held together with some kind of metallic tape, and their reactor is running on what our computers can only identify as caffeine and stubborn determination. Thektar looked at the readings. The human ship was indeed a disaster. It was old, patched with mismatched parts, and should have fallen apart years ago, but somehow it was not only functional, it had just completed a hyperspace jump that should have been impossible with their technology. How are they even alive? He muttered. Chen's voice came over the radio again. Hey, sorry to keep bothering you, but our engineer wants to know if you guys need any help with your ships. He noticed that your engines are running kind of rough. Might want to check your coolant levels. Rodriguez had indeed been looking at the crystal ships through a pair of binoculars. Those are some nice ships, but whoever built them doesn't know much about proper maintenance. Look at the way that exhaust is glowing. That's either a coolant leak or they're about to have a very bad day. Should we tell them? Chen asked. Might be the neighborly thing to do. Thektar was now experiencing what could only be described as a complete breakdown of everything he thought he knew about the universe. These primitive creatures were not only unafraid of his mighty fleet, they were offering mechanical advice. Get me a full scan of their species, he barked at his science officer. I want to know everything about these humans. Sir, preliminary scans indicate they are from a planet called Earth. They appear to be a relatively young species, but the data is confusing. Confusing how? Well, sir, they seem to have developed space travel despite having a complete disregard for safety protocols. Their ships regularly operate beyond safe parameters, their crews work in conditions that should kill them, and they appear to fix serious mechanical problems by hitting things with primitive tools. That's impossible. Yes, sir. Yet, here they are. Chen's voice interrupted his thoughts again. Listen, we really do need to get going. Our delivery is already late, and the customer gets cranky when we're behind schedule. Could you maybe point us toward the nearest space highway? We're looking for something that goes in the direction of the Orion Arm. Also, Park added over the radio, do any of your ships have good restaurants? We've been eating nothing but protein bars and instant noodles for 2 weeks. Thektar sat down heavily in his command chair. In all his years of conquest, he had reduced entire civilizations to rubble with nothing more than a threatening speech and an impressive fleet formation. These humans were treating his unstoppable war machine like a minor inconvenience and asking for dining recommendations. Sir, his first officer asked quietly, what are your orders? Thektar stared at the small, pathetic human ship floating in the middle of his battle formation like a lost tourist asking for directions. I need a moment to think. 3 hours later, the humans found themselves aboard the Zephyrian flagship. This was not by choice, but it was not exactly against their will either. The aliens had used something called a tractor beam to pull their ship into the landing bay. Chen had spent the entire time asking Rodriguez if they could build one of those for hauling broken-down cargo containers. The Zephyrians had expected the humans to be terrified when they were brought aboard the massive warship. Instead, Chen immediately asked if she could get the Wi-Fi password and whether the aliens had a bathroom she could use. Park started taking pictures of everything and asking guards to pose with her. Rodriguez found the ship's engine room within 10 minutes and started a conversation with the maintenance crew about proper lubrication techniques. This is not how conquest usually goes, muttered Commander Vexhall, who had been put in charge of processing the humans. The processing chamber was designed to be intimidating. The walls were black metal covered in sharp spikes. Red lights flashed ominously. The ceiling was too high and filled with shadows. Most species brought here would be reduced to gibbering terror within minutes. Chen sat at the interrogation table, filling out paperwork with the enthusiasm of someone renewing their driver's license. Question 15 asks about my species' technological level. Do you want me to put down what we're supposed to have, or what we actually have? because there's a big difference. What do you mean? Vexhall asked. Well, according to the manual, our hyperspace drive should only work within a 30 light-year radius. But Rodriguez hit it with a hammer last month, and now it goes wherever it wants. We're not really sure how. Vexhall made a note on his tablet. And question 16 asks about your species' military capabilities. Oh, we don't really have those. I mean, Earth has armies and stuff, but they're busy with Earth problems. The rest of us are just trying to make a living hauling cargo. Although Rodriguez did mount a nail gun on our ship after we had some trouble with space pirates. A nail gun? Yeah, it shoots nails. Works great for emergency repairs, too. Very practical. Meanwhile, in the ship's main corridor, Park was live streaming her tour of the alien vessel. Her audience had grown from 12 followers to 15, which she considered a major success. So this is the inside of an alien death ship, she said to her phone camera while walking past confused Zephyrian soldiers. The architecture is very dramatic. Lots of spikes and scary lighting. It's like someone watched too many horror movies and decided to base their interior design on them. The Wi-Fi is surprisingly good, though. One of the soldiers tried to look menacing by growling at her. Park turned the camera toward him. Oh, and here's one of the locals. Say hi, scary alien guy. The soldier, whose name was Krath and who had personally destroyed several planets, found himself waving awkwardly at the camera. He's actually pretty friendly once you get past all the growling and the armor made of sharp metal. I think it's a cultural thing. Down in the engine room, Rodriguez was having the time of his life. The Zephyrian engineers had never met anyone who understood machinery the way he did. More importantly, they had never met anyone who could fix things that were completely broken using nothing but spare parts and creative swearing. See, your problem is right here, Rodriguez said, pointing at a massive crystal formation that hummed with energy. This power coupling is vibrating at the wrong frequency. You need to either replace the harmonic dampener or just hit it with something heavy until it stops making that noise. Chief Engineer Zachmore looked at the readout. But that coupling has been making that noise for 40 years. Our engineers said it was within acceptable parameters. Your engineers don't know what they're talking about. Watch this. Rodriguez pulled out his trusty wrench and gave the crystal formation a sharp tap in exactly the right spot. The humming stopped immediately and the engine's efficiency increased by 12%. The Zephyrian engineers stared in amazement. How did you know to do that? Zachmore asked. Experience. I've been fixing broken stuff my whole life. You learn to listen to what the machine is telling you. This one was saying, please hit me with a wrench so I can work properly. Back in the processing chamber, Vexhall was beginning to understand why Admiral Thektar had been acting strange all day. These humans were completely impossible to process using standard conquest procedures. Question 20 asks about your species' religious beliefs, he said to Chen. Most humans believe in various things. I personally believe that any problem can be solved with enough coffee and determination. Also, that the universe has a sense of humor, and it's usually laughing at us. And question 21 asks about your species' greatest fears. Chen thought about this for a moment. Running out of coffee, having to fill out more paperwork than this, getting stuck in traffic, oh, and student loan debt. That one keeps a lot of people awake at night. What about death? Slavery? The destruction of your homeworld? Well, sure. Those would be bad, too. But they're not really everyday concerns, you know? It's hard to worry about cosmic annihilation when you're trying to figure out why the hyperspace drive makes that weird clicking noise. Vexhall set down his tablet. I need to speak with the Admiral. He found Thektar in his private chambers, staring out the window at the human cargo ship, which was still sitting in the landing bay. Several Zephyrian technicians were gathered around it, apparently fascinated by its construction. Sir, the processing is not going well, Vexhall reported. Define not going well. The humans are treating the entire procedure like a mild inconvenience. The female filled out all the conquest paperwork and asked if she could get copies for her records. The male found our engine room and has somehow improved our power output by 15%. The young one is broadcasting our ship's interior to something called social media and has convinced half our crew to appear in her videos. Thektar continued staring out the window. What do our psychologists say about them? Dr. Melthar examined their responses and concluded that humans appear to have evolved without a proper fear response. They seem to treat potentially lethal situations as minor problems to be solved rather than threats to be feared. That's impossible. Fear is the foundation of survival. Yes, sir. Dr. Melthar said the same thing. Then he asked to speak with the humans personally to understand how they function without dying constantly. Thektar watched as the human engineer emerged from underneath their ship covered in oil and grease, apparently having fixed something that was broken. The human looked satisfied with his work and immediately started examining one of the Zephyrian fighters parked nearby. Sir, Vexhal continued, what should we do with them? Thektar had conquered 1,000 worlds. He had reduced entire species to slavery. He had built an empire that spanned half the galaxy through fear and superior firepower. But he had never encountered a species that treated his empire like a minor travel delay. I don't know, he admitted. This was the first time in 300 years that Thektar the Merciless had admitted to not knowing something. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. Outside his window, Park was taking a selfie with a group of Zephyrian pilots, all of whom were trying to figure out how to use her phone camera. The sight of his elite warriors giggling over human technology made something inside Thektar's brain hurt. Sir, Vexhal asked, give me another hour to think about this. Word spread through the Zephyrian Empire faster than a computer virus in a college dorm. The news was simple and impossible to believe. There was a species that was not afraid of the mighty Zephyrian fleet. Even worse, they seemed to find the entire empire mildly inconvenient at best. On the conquered world of Meldavia, former Queen Issel received the news while working in the crystal mines that had once been her palace gardens. She dropped her mining tool and stared at the messenger. They asked for what? She whispered. Truck stops, your former majesty. The humans wanted to know if there were any good truck stops in Zephyrian space. Issel had ruled Meldavia for 60 years before the Zephyrians conquered her world. She had seen her armies destroyed, her cities burned, and her people enslaved. The sight of Thektar's fleet arriving in her system had made her weep with despair. These humans had asked for snacks. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship, Chen had set up what she called a cultural exchange program in the cargo bay. This mainly involved selling coffee and expired Earth snacks to curious Zephyrian crew members who had never experienced caffeine before. This coffee is remarkable, said Lieutenant Vorth, who was currently experiencing his first caffeine high. It makes everything seem possible. I feel like I could conquer 3-star systems before lunch. Yeah, that's normal, Chen said, handing him a second cup. Just wait until it wears off. Then you'll need more coffee to feel human again. Well, not human exactly, but you know what I mean. Park had become something of a celebrity among the younger Zephyrian crew members. Her social media account, which she had renamed Touring the Galaxy with Park, had grown to over 100 followers. Most of them were aliens who had never seen humans before and were fascinated by her complete lack of concern about being aboard a warship. Today's episode is about alien food, she announced to her phone camera while standing in the ship's cafeteria. So far, I've tried something called protein paste, which tastes like cardboard mixed with sadness, and nutritional gel, which is somehow worse. The local cuisine is very minimalist. I give it 2 stars out of 5. Points for efficiency, minus points for flavor. A group of Zephyrian soldiers had gathered behind her to watch the filming. They had never considered that their food might be bad. It was food. It provided nutrients. That seemed sufficient. What do humans eat? Asked Sergeant Klex. Oh, all kinds of stuff. Pizza, hamburgers, tacos, ice cream, food that actually tastes good. Eating should be enjoyable, not just functional. The concept of food being enjoyable was completely foreign to the Zephyrians. They ate to survive, not for pleasure. The idea that meals could be fun was revolutionary. Rodriguez had become the most popular person on the ship among the engineering crew. In just 2 days, he had fixed 17 different systems that had been broken for months or even years. His methods were unorthodox, but they worked. The trick to fixing anything, he explained to a group of fascinated alien engineers, is to understand what it wants to do and then help it do that thing. This plasma conduit wants to carry energy smoothly from point A to point B. Right now, it's fighting against this badly designed connector, so we fix the connector and everyone's happy. Chief Engineer Zach Moore was taking notes on everything Rodriguez said. But our manuals say the connector is installed correctly. Your manuals are wrong. Whoever wrote them never actually worked on one of these ships. They just designed it on a computer and assumed it would work perfectly in real life. This was another revolutionary concept for the Zephyrians. Their society was built on rigid hierarchies and unquestioning obedience to authority. The idea that official manuals could be wrong was almost unthinkable. So what do you do when the manual is wrong? Zach Moore asked. You ignore the manual and fix the problem anyway. The universe doesn't care what the manual says. Physics is physics. News of the humans continued to spread throughout Zephyrian space. On the prison world of Thraxis, former President Jaylock heard that the humans had asked for directions to the nearest space highway. In the slave camps of Vorthon, workers whispered that the humans had complained about the lack of decent restaurants. In the sector, the psychological effect was profound. For 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had maintained control through fear and the promise of swift, terrible punishment for any resistance. Their reputation for merciless conquest was their greatest weapon. But how do you maintain a reputation? For being terrifying when someone treats you like a minor traffic inconvenience? Admiral Tektar was discovering this problem firsthand. He had called a meeting of his senior staff to discuss what to do with the humans. The meeting was not going well. Sir, perhaps we should simply destroy them and be done with it, suggested Commander Vexhal. That would normally be the logical course of action. Tektar agreed. But the problem is that news of their attitude has already spread throughout the Empire. If we destroy them now, it will look like we were threatened by 3 cargo haulers who weren't even trying to resist us. But, sir, they are just 3 individuals. How much damage could they do to our reputation? As if summoned by his question, Park's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. She had somehow gained access to the internal broadcast network and was giving her followers a tour of the bridge. And this is where they control the whole ship, her voice said cheerfully. It's very dark and dramatic, with lots of flashing, lights and scary music playing in the background. The command chair is way too big and has spikes on it for some reason. I think it's supposed to be intimidating, but it just looks uncomfortable. Tektar closed his eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Word about the humans has reached the subjugated worlds. Some of the conquered populations are asking questions. What kind of questions? Questions like, if humans can treat the Empire like this, how scary can it really be? And why are we so afraid of people who get confused by coffee shop logistics? This was exactly what Tektar had been afraid of. The Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of worlds and trillions of beings through carefully maintained fear. If that fear broke down, the entire empire could collapse within months. What about our psychological warfare division? Can they contain the information? Sir, the humans' social media broadcasts are being transmitted on frequencies we didn't know existed. Their communication technology is primitive but surprisingly effective. Also, our troops have started following the human, female's videos. Lieutenant Vorth has shared her coffee tutorial with half the ship. Tektar felt a headache forming behind his eyes. Get me a full psychological profile of these humans. I need to understand how their minds work. An hour later, Dr. Melthar presented his findings to the Admiral's staff. The Zephyrian chief psychologist looked like he had been awake for days and had consumed far too much coffee. "The humans are fascinating," he began. "They appear to have evolved on a world where nearly everything is trying to kill them. Yet they have developed a psychological response that treats mortal danger as a problem to be solved rather than a reason to panic." "Explain," Thektar demanded. "Their homeworld, Earth, is a death trap. Massive storms, earthquakes, predatory animals, poisonous plants, extreme weather, and countless other hazards. Most species would have gone extinct or never developed intelligence. Instead, humans developed the ability to remain calm under pressure and find practical solutions to impossible problems. That explains their lack of fear, but not their complete disregard for our authority." "Ah, that's even more interesting. Human society is based on the concept of individual liberty and questioning authority. They are literally raised from childhood to distrust anyone who claims to have power over them without earning it. Our standard intimidation tactics actually make them less likely to cooperate, not more." Vexhal leaned forward. "Are you saying that threatening them makes them more stubborn?" "Exactly. When a human encounters someone trying to dominate them, through fear, their instinctive response is to become sarcastic and uncooperative. It's a species-wide survival trait." Thektar stared at the report. "So we have encountered a species that evolution has specifically designed to be immune to our conquest methods." "In essence, yes, sir." The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear Rodriguez explaining to someone how to properly adjust plasma, flow regulators using nothing but a wrench and creative profanity. "Sir," Vexhal said quietly, "what do we do now?" The Zephyrian High Command made their decision after 3 days of debate, 17 cups of human coffee, and 1 complete mental breakdown by the Minister of Psychological Warfare. They would make an example of humanity by attacking Earth directly. The plan was simple: destroy the human homeworld in front of the entire galaxy, broadcast the annihilation across every communication channel in the Empire, and restore their reputation for unstoppable terror. Supreme Admiral Thektar led the largest fleet in Zephyrian history toward Earth. 3,000 warships, each capable of cracking a planet's crust, arranged in the traditional formation of doom. Every weapon was charged, every crew member was prepared for glorious battle, and every camera was ready to record humanity's final moments. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system and immediately received an automated message from something called Sol System Traffic Control. "Welcome to Sol System. All commercial and military vessels, please proceed to designated parking zones based on ship classification. Parking Zone 1 is for vessels under 1 kilometer. Zone 2 is for ships between 1 and 5 kilometers. Zone 3 is for anything bigger. Please maintain safe following distances and observe posted speed limits. Have a nice day." Admiral Thektar stared at the communications panel. "They want us to park?" "Sir," his navigation officer said carefully, "it appears that Earth's traffic control system has classified our invasion fleet as really big ships that need somewhere to sit." "Attention, Earth," Thektar broadcast, on all frequencies using his most terrifying voice. "This is Admiral Thektar the Merciless. You have harbored the humans who have insulted the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Prepare for total annihilation." The response came back immediately in a cheerful female voice. "Hi there, I'm Sarah from Sol Traffic Control. I've got you down for 3,000 ships, total length approximately 15,000 kilometers. You're going to need parking zone 7, which is behind the moon. Please follow the blue navigation beacons and maintain a speed of no more than 50,000 kilometers per hour in the inner system. Also, just so you know, we're having some construction work done on the main space lanes this week, so expect delays." Commander Vexhal looked at his tactical display. Blue lights had indeed appeared, leading them toward the far side of Earth's moon. "Sir, are we following the parking instructions?" No, we are not following the parking instructions. We are here to destroy their planet. Understood, sir. But the navigation beacons are really well designed, very user-friendly. The fleet moved toward Earth, ignoring the traffic control system and preparing for battle. This turned out to be a mistake, because Earth's approach to planetary defense was exactly as practical and unconventional as everything else humans did. Instead of meeting them with a defensive fleet or desperate surrender broadcasts, Earth responded by completely ignoring the invasion force and going about its normal business. Ships launched from the planet carrying cargo and passengers. Space stations continued their regular operations. A group of human children on a school field trip to Luna Base pressed their faces against the windows to watch the pretty crystal ships. Sir, the tactical officer reported, Earth's defense grid has not activated. They don't appear to have noticed that we're invading them. That's impossible. We're the largest fleet in galactic history. Yes, sir, but according to our scans, Earth's military forces are all busy with something called terrestrial operations. They appear to be fighting each other over various political disagreements. Admiral Thektar felt his sanity beginning to crack. They're fighting each other while we're invading them? Yes, sir. Also, sir, we're receiving a communication from Luna Base. Put it through. A young human voice came over the speakers. She sounded maybe 17 years old and spoke with the casual authority of someone who had never been told that talking to alien invaders was supposed to be scary. Hey there, Crystal Ship people. This is Intern Kelly from Luna Base Systems. Control. Just wanted to let you know that you're drifting into the shipping lanes between Earth and Mars. Could you maybe move about 50,000 kilometers to your left? We've got a cargo convoy coming through in about an hour, and your ships are blocking their route. We are here to destroy your planet, Thektar roared into the communicator. Oh, okay. Well, could you maybe do that after the convoy passes? The cargo ships don't have very good steering, and if they hit one of your ships, it'll mess up everyone's insurance paperwork, Vexhal whispered. Sir, she's treating our invasion fleet like a traffic jam. I can hear that, Commander. Thektar tried a different approach. Human child, do you not understand that your species is about to be exterminated? Yeah, I heard you the first time. Look, I'm just an intern, okay? I don't make policy decisions about extermination and stuff, but I do make decisions about space traffic, and you guys are really messing up the flow here. Could you please just move a little bit to the left? The Admiral realized he was arguing about parking spaces with a teenage intern while commanding the most powerful military force in galactic history. Something was very wrong with this scenario. Sir, another officer interrupted, we have a problem. What, now? One of our dreadnoughts has lost power. The Void Destroyer is drifting toward Luna Base. On the main screen, they watched as the massive Zephyrian warship slowly tumbled toward the human moon base. This should have been catastrophic for both ships. Instead, a small human maintenance vessel approached the dreadnought and extended what appeared to be a towing cable. Attention drifting crystal ship, came a voice over the radio. This is Luna Base Recovery. Looks like you've got some engine trouble. We'll tow you to the repair station. Try not to worry about the bill. We've got good rates for emergency service. They're going to tow the Void Destroyer? Vexahal asked in amazement. They watched as the tiny human ship, which was maybe 1,000th, the size of the dreadnought, somehow managed to get a towing cable attached and began pulling the massive warship toward Luna Base. The Void Destroyer's crew was too shocked to resist. Sir, the communications officer said, Luna Base is asking if our other ships need any mechanical assistance. They're offering repair services, refueling, and something called duty-free shopping. That's when things got really strange. A human civilian transport approached the fleet broadcasting on standard greeting frequencies. Hello there, visitors. Welcome to the Sol system. I'm Captain Martinez with Solar Tours. Would your crews be interested in a guided tour of the inner planets? We're running a special this week. 3 planets for the price of 2. And we throw in the asteroid belt for free. Very educational. They want to give us a tour? Thektar asked weakly. Sir, Approximately 30 of our ships are requesting permission to take the tour, his communications officer reported. The crews say they've never seen an alien star system before, and they're curious about human architecture. Absolutely not. But it was too late. Several of his ships were already following the human tour guide toward Venus, their crews broadcasting excitement about seeing new worlds. The mighty Zephyrian invasion fleet was turning into a tourist expedition. The final blow to Thektar's sanity came when intern Kelly from Luna Base called back. "Crystal Ship Admiral Guy, I just talked to my supervisor and she says you can't destroy Earth today because we haven't filed the proper environmental impact paperwork with the Solar Safety Commission. Planet destruction requires at least 30 days' notice and a full ecological survey. But if you want, I can put you on the waiting list for next month. How does the 15th sound? Admiral Thektar, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, destroyer of civilizations, bringer of cosmic terror, found himself checking his calendar to see if he was free on the 15th. Sir, Vexhal said gently, perhaps we should reconsider our approach to this species. Yes, Thektar said in a voice that suggested his spirit had been completely broken. Perhaps we should. The revolution began with a news interview. Park, who had somehow gained access to the Zephyrian fleet's main communication array, was live-streaming what she thought was just another casual conversation with Admiral Thektar. Her follower count had grown to over 50,000 beings across the galaxy, most of whom were subjugated aliens who had never seen anyone talk to their oppressors so casually. "So, Admiralty," Park said, holding her phone up to record while sitting in what had once been the most feared command center in the galaxy, "tell my viewers about your empire. What's your basic deal here?" Thektar, who had not slept in 3 days and had consumed enough human coffee to kill a small elephant, stared at the camera with the hollow eyes of a being whose entire worldview had collapsed. We conquer worlds," he said automatically. "We bring order to chaos. We eliminate the weak and make the galaxy stronger through our dominance." "Okay, but why though? What's the point of all that conquering? Are you guys happy doing this?" The question hit Thektar like a physical blow. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever asked him if he was happy. The concept of happiness had never been part of Zephyrian military philosophy. Happiness is irrelevant. We serve the Empire. The Empire serves order. That sounds super depressing. Also, can we talk about your environmental impact? Like how much energy does it take to run 3,000 massive spaceships? Have you guys ever considered renewable energy? Solar power is getting really efficient these days. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived in terror of the Zephyrian Empire for generations watched their most feared enemy being gently interviewed about his carbon footprint by a human, who seemed genuinely concerned about his well-being. On the conquered world of Meldavia, former Queen Issel watched the broadcast with growing amazement. The human was treating Thektar like a misguided person who needed career counseling, not a cosmic tyrant who had destroyed countless civilizations. "Admiral, when's the last time you took a vacation?" Park asked. "You look really stressed. Have you considered therapy? My cousin Jake went through a really dark period where he was super aggressive and controlling, but therapy helped him work through his issues." What is therapy? It's when you talk to someone about your problems and feelings. It helps you understand why you do the things you do. Like, why do you feel the need to dominate everyone you meet? Did someone hurt you when you were little? Are you trying to prove something to your parents? The interview was being broadcast live to every screen in Zephyrian space. Trillions of conquered beings watched their terrifying overlord admit that he didn't know what therapy was, and that he had never considered whether his life choices made him happy. "I think maybe you guys just need some better hobbies," Park continued. "Conquering worlds seems like it would get really boring after a while. Have you ever tried art, music, cooking? When's the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it?" Thektar opened his mouth to answer, then realized he couldn't remember the last time he had done anything for enjoyment. His entire existence was duty, conquest, and the expansion of Zephyrian power. I don't know. That's when the revolution truly began. Not with violence or heroic speeches, but with the simple realization that their oppressors were just deeply unhappy people who had never learned to find joy in life. On Meldavia, Queen Issel stood up from her mining equipment and walked toward the Zephyrian overseer who had been guarding her work crew. "Commander Zalox," she said calmly, "when's the last time you were happy?" The commander, who had been watching the interview on his portable screen, looked up with confusion. "What? Happy, content, satisfied with your life. When's the last time you felt that way?" Zalox had never been asked this question either. He thought about it for a long moment. I achieved a commendation for efficient slave management last year. That was satisfying. But were you happy? Did it bring you joy? I don't understand the question. Around the galaxy, similar conversations were starting. Conquered beings, inspired by Park's casual approach to questioning authority, began asking their oppressors simple questions about life satisfaction and personal fulfillment. The psychological effect was devastating to the Zephyrian occupation forces. Back on the flagship, Park was wrapping up her interview. "Admiral T, I think you should consider taking some time off. Maybe visit Earth. We've got great beaches, good food, and lots of therapy options. You seem like you could use a break from all this conquering stuff." That actually sounds pleasant," Thektar admitted. "See? You just need to expand your horizons a little. Life's too short to spend it being angry and scary all the time." The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Within hours, reports were flooding in from across the Empire. Zephyrian commanders were experiencing what their psychologists could only describe as existential crises. Soldiers were questioning the point of their missions. Some were laying down their weapons and asking conquered populations for restaurant recommendations. On the prison world of Thraxis, former President Jalok approached his Zephyrian guard with a simple question. "Sergeant Krex, what do you want to do with your life?" I want to serve the Empire," Krex replied automatically. "No, I mean, what do you want to do? If you could do anything, what would make you happy?" Krex thought about this for a long time. "I always wanted to learn how to cook," he finally admitted. "My grandmother used to make these wonderful soup analogs, but she died before she could teach me the recipe." "Why don't you learn how to cook then?" "Because I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't cook." "Says who?" The question hung in the air like a revelation. Says who, indeed? The collapse of the Zephyrian Empire happened faster than anyone thought possible. It wasn't destroyed by superior firepower or strategic brilliance. It fell apart because Park's interview had asked the one question that authoritarian systems can't answer. Why are you doing this, and does it make you happy? Within a week, Zephyrian forces across the galaxy were abandoning their posts. Some returned to their homeworld to figure out what they actually wanted to do with their lives. Others stayed on the worlds they had conquered, but as residents rather than occupiers. A surprising number enrolled in cooking classes. Admiral Thektar formally dissolved the Zephyrian Empire in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. He announced that he was retiring from military service to pursue what he called personal growth and possibly learning to paint. "I want to thank the human park for helping me realize that I have been deeply unhappy for several centuries," he said in his final address. "I encourage all former Imperial forces to take some time to consider what actually brings them joy. The galaxy has enough suffering without us adding to it deliberately." The ceremony was interrupted when Rodriguez finally managed to get the coffee machine on the rusty bucket working properly. The celebration that followed involved most of the former Zephyrian fleet and lasted for 3 days. Chen, meanwhile, had finally found directions to the nearest truck stop. It was now located in what used to be the Zephyrian Administrative Center for the Outer Rim territories, The new management served excellent coffee and had very clean bathrooms. "So," Chen said to Park as they prepared to finally deliver their cargo, "how does it feel to accidentally overthrow a galactic empire?" Park looked up from her phone, where she was editing a video titled, "How I Accidentally Started a Revolution by Asking About Therapy." "It was okay, I guess. Kind of surreal. My follower count is up to 2 million now, which is cool. And Rodriguez, how does it feel to know that your mechanical advice helped liberate thousands of worlds?" Rodriguez emerged from under the ship, wiping his hands on a rag. "The coffee machine is finally working properly," he announced. "Want some?" "That's not what I asked." "Oh, the liberation thing? That's nice. But seriously, you should try this coffee. I think I finally got the temperature regulation perfect." 6 months later, Chen received a letter from Admiral Thektar. He had opened a small cafe on a peaceful world in the former empire. The letter included a photo of him wearing an apron and smiling while serving soup to customers. He looked genuinely happy for the first time in centuries. "Thank you for teaching me that there are better ways to live," the letter said. Also, Rodriguez was right about the engine coolant issue. "My ship runs much more efficiently now." Chen posted the letter on the bulletin board of their new favorite truck stop, right next to thank you notes from 17 other former galactic conquerors who had discovered the joy of pursuing their actual interests instead of trying to dominate the universe. Park's social media account had become required viewing for several interstellar diplomacy courses. Her casual approach to questioning authority had been dubbed the Park Method and was being studied by political scientists across the galaxy. Rodriguez had written a technical manual called Basic Ship Maintenance, a common-sense guide to not dying in space. It had become the best-selling engineering text in 12 star systems. As for the Rusty Bucket, it continued hauling cargo across the galaxy, completely unchanged except for the coffee machine, which finally worked correctly. The crew remained, magnificently unimpressed by their accidental role in galactic history. "You know what?" Chen said, as they prepared for another routine cargo.
The sky turned purple above the North American Defense Command Center as Alan Foster stared at his monitoring screens. His coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. Something big had just appeared near Jupiter, something that wasn't supposed to be there. "Sir, we have an unidentified object at the edge of the system," said Lisa Chen, the young radar specialist whose eyes were now wide with concern. Alan put down his cup and leaned forward. "How big?" "Massive, about 3 miles long." "And sir?" "It's not alone." The screens filled with more signals as the sensors adjusted. One ship became 5, then 20, then over 100. The room fell silent as everyone watched the objects move with purpose, forming a pattern that left no doubt. This was a fleet, a military fleet. "Get Admiral Blake on the line," Alan ordered, his voice steady despite the cold feeling in his stomach. "And someone wake up the president." 30 minutes later, the most powerful people on Earth gathered in the underground situation room. Maps and data feeds covered the walls as Susan Blake, a tall woman with gray hair and a stern face, pointed at the incoming fleet. "They're moving faster than anything we've ever seen," she told the silent room. "They'll reach Mars in 3 days. The president, a man not used to feeling helpless, looked at the gathered experts. "What are they? What do they want?" As if answering his question, every screen in the room flickered. A face appeared. At least it seemed like a face. It had scales, instead of skin. Yellow eyes with slits for pupils and no visible nose. When it spoke, its mouth showed rows of sharp teeth. "People of Earth, we are the Draconian Empire. Your world is now under our protection. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. We come to rule, not to destroy. Comply, and you will live. Resist, and you will not." The message repeated in 20 different languages before the screens returned to normal. "Well, that answers that question," the president said, trying to sound braver than he felt. In a laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Olivia Ward didn't know about the aliens yet. She was too busy looking at the strange readings on her quantum physics equipment. Something was causing disturbances in the fabric of space-time, and she couldn't figure out what. Her assistant, Daniel Green, burst into the lab, out of breath. "Olivia, turn on the news. Aliens, real aliens." Olivia frowned. "Daniel, if this is another one of your jokes, it's not. The whole world is going crazy. They're calling them draconians. Like dragons, I guess, because they look like lizards." Olivia turned on the small TV in the corner of her lab. As the news showed blurry images of the alien ships, her eyes moved back and forth between the screen and her equipment. Suddenly, she understood. "It's them," she whispered. "They're causing these quantum fluctuations. Their ships, they must bend space somehow." Back at the Defense Command Center, Alan Foster received new information. The alien fleet had split up. Most ships were still heading to Mars, but 5 smaller vessels were coming directly to Earth. "They'll be here in 12 hours, he told Admiral Blake. "What are your orders?" The Admiral looked tired. "We've sent up fighters to meet them, but based on their technology, it won't do much good." "So we just surrender?" Alan couldn't hide the anger in his voice. "No, we buy time. The President is going to try talking to them. Meanwhile, I need your help with something else." She handed him a folder marked Top Secret. "There's a research facility in the Rockies. They've been working on experimental physics, something called quantum entanglement. The scientists there think they might have found something useful." Alan opened the folder and saw a picture of a serious-looking woman with dark hair. "Dr. Olivia Ward?" "Yes. You're going to bring her and her research to a safe location. If these lizard people are as advanced as they seem, we'll need every advantage we can get." As Alan prepared to leave, Jack Murray, an intelligence officer with thick glasses, approached him. "Sir, I've been analyzing the draconian transmission. There's something odd about it." "What do you mean?" Jack showed him a tablet with sound waves on it. "Their language uses frequencies we can't hear, but our computers can. There's a pattern in the background noise. I think they're communicating with someone else while talking to us." Alan frowned. "Who would they be talking to?" "I don't know, but whatever they're saying, they don't want us to hear it." 6 hours later, Alan arrived at the Mountain Research Facility. The place was in chaos as scientists packed up equipment and shredded documents. Dr. Ward didn't look up from her work when Alan entered her lab. "Unless you're here to help me move this equipment, you're wasting my time." "Dr. Ward, I'm Commander Foster. Admiral Blake sent me. That got her attention. Is it true about the aliens?" "Yes. And we need your help." Olivia pointed to a small device on her workbench. It looked like a metal box with lights on it. "This is a quantum field generator. It's experimental. We were studying how particles can exist in 2 places at once. And how does that help us? Against alien invaders? Their ships generate quantum fields too, much stronger than ours. That's how they travel so fast. But if 2 quantum fields interact..." She made an explosion gesture with her hands. "You think we can use this against them?" Alan asked, hope rising in his voice. "Maybe. But we need to get closer to one of their ships to test it. And we need more time to make it work properly." As they talked, the first draconian scout ships entered Earth's atmosphere. People around the world watched the sky, some in fear, others in wonder. On the main draconian warship, High Commander Zis Krath looked at the blue planet on his screen. "Such a primitive world," he hissed to his second-in-command. "They have no idea what's coming." "Should we tell them the truth about why we're here?" asked his officer. "No. Let them think we only want their obedience. The harvest will be easier that way." Unknown to the aliens, Jack Murray had managed to intercept and partially translate this private conversation. As he listened to the Draconians discuss their real plans for Earth, his face turned pale. He needed to warn Commander Foster and Dr. Ward. Whatever these aliens wanted, it was much worse than conquest. The human race had 2 weeks at most to find a way to stop them. The greatest, fight in human history had begun. Dr. Olivia Ward's laboratory had moved. Instead of the quiet mountain facility, she now worked in a busy underground bunker. People in uniforms rushed around her as she focused on her quantum device. The small metal box now sat in the middle of a larger machine with wires and computers connected to it. "Will it work?" asked Alan Foster. He had dark circles under his eyes. No one had slept much since the Draconians arrived. "Maybe," said Olivia. "But we need more power, and we need to test it." A new person entered the room. He had messy hair and wore a t-shirt with science jokes on it. "I'm Kevin Rodriguez," he said. "They tell me you need a programmer." Olivia nodded. "The quantum field creates patterns. We need to match those patterns to the ones the alien ships make. Can you write code for that?" Kevin smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "That's why I'm here." In another part of the bunker, Jack Murray played the intercepted Draconian messages for Admiral Blake. "They keep talking about something called the Harvest. I don't think they just want to rule us." The Admiral's face was grim. "What do they want then?" "Based on these messages, I think they want our resources. Maybe even our people." "For what?" "I don't know yet. But they've done this before. To other worlds." Admiral Blake stood up straighter. "Then we need to know everything about them." "Commander Foster." Alan walked over from Olivia's lab area. "Yes, Admiral?" "We need intelligence from their forward base. They've set up on Phobos, the moon of Mars. I need someone to go there." Alan didn't hesitate. "I'll go." "It's a one-way trip. Most likely. Someone has to do it." 2 days later, Alan sat in a small experimental spacecraft. Next to him was Laura Phillips, a former astronaut with short blonde hair and steady hands. "The cloaking technology should hide us from their sensors," Laura explained as she prepared for launch. "But it's never been tested against alien tech. If it doesn't work, we'll know pretty quickly," Alan said with a grim smile. Their ship, along with 2 others carrying small teams, launched quietly from the dark side of the moon. Earth's last remaining military satellites had been repositioned to hide their departure from the Draconian ships in orbit. As they left Earth behind, Alan looked at the blue planet through the window. "I never thought I'd see it like this." Laura nodded. "Beautiful, isn't it? Worth fighting for." The journey to Mars took 3 days using the experimental engines. As they approached the red planet, they saw the Draconian base. It covered almost half of Phobos, the small moon that orbited Mars. Dozens of ships moved around it like bees around a hive. "Now we see if the cloaking works," whispered Laura, though no one could hear them in space. They held their breath as they flew past a massive Draconian patrol ship. It didn't react. The cloaking was working. They landed on the far side of Phobos, away from the alien base. Alan led his team out onto the surface, all wearing special suits that would hide their body heat from alien sensors. "Remember, plant the devices and get out," he told his team of 4. No heroes today. They moved slowly across the moon's surface, using the low gravity to make long, careful jumps. When they reached the edge of the base, they split up. Alan and a soldier named Greg Kelly went toward what looked like a control center, while the others headed for the power systems. Inside the base, Alan was shocked by what he saw. The walls were covered with strange symbols and the air felt too hot and humid for humans. But most disturbing were the rows of empty cells. "Prison cells," Greg whispered. "Hundreds of them. They were planning to bring people here." Alan planted his first monitoring device on a wall near a computer terminal. It was smaller than his thumb but would send signals back to Earth. As he worked, he noticed something on a nearby screen. It showed images of planets being destroyed one after another. They've done this before, he realized. Many times. On the other side of the base, Laura Phillips and her team planted devices near the power generators. She noticed strange glowing crystals being used as fuel. "Take images of everything," she told her team. "Dr. Ward needs to see how their technology works." Back on Earth, Kevin Rodriguez made a breakthrough. He jumped up from his computer, startling Olivia. "I've got it," he shouted. "Their quantum field has a pattern. It repeats every 12 seconds. Olivia quickly looked at his data. That's it. If we can match that pattern but reverse it, we can disrupt their ships, Kevin finished her sentence. Just then, a message came in from Jack Murray. The Draconians have called for a meeting. They want to negotiate Earth's surrender. Admiral Blake gathered the world's leaders to discuss the option. In a room filled with screens showing people from different countries, she explained what they knew. They're not here to rule us. They've done this to 17 other worlds. They take a planet's resources and maybe its people, then move on. We can't surrender, but we can pretend to, suggested Richard Collins, a calm man with a talent for talking to difficult people. I can lead a team to meet with them. Buy us time. Time for what? Asked one of the leaders. Olivia stepped forward. Time for us to finish our weapon. We think we can disrupt their ships with a quantum field generator, but we need to get it close to their main ship. A Trojan horse, said Admiral Blake. Collins goes in under the flag of diplomacy. Commander Foster's team plants the device. If we're caught, they'll kill us all, Richard said. If we do nothing, they'll kill us anyway, replied the Admiral. On Phobos, Alan's team prepared to leave after collecting their data. But as they approached their hidden ship, they saw Draconian guards searching the area. They found our landing site, Laura whispered. Alan looked at his team, then back at the alien base. We need that information to get back to Earth. I'll create a distraction. The rest of you get to the second ship. Before they could argue, Alan jumped out from their hiding place and ran toward the Draconian guards, firing his weapon. The aliens turned toward him, giving the others a chance to escape. As Laura's ship lifted off from Phobos, she looked back at the surface of the moon. There was no sign of Alan. Commander Foster sacrificed himself, she told her team, fighting, back tears. We can't waste it. When they returned to Earth, they delivered the critical intelligence. The monitoring devices Alan had planted continued to send signals, providing valuable information about Draconian technology and plans. In her lab, Olivia looked at the data from Phobos with growing excitement. This changes everything. Thereby, ships all connect to a central network. If we can disrupt one, we might disrupt them all, Kevin finished. As Earth prepared its desperate plan, the Draconian fleet moved closer. The final countdown had begun. Richard Collins stood before a mirror adjusting his tie. As Earth's chief negotiator, he needed to look perfect. Perfect, but not threatening. The Draconians had agreed to a meeting on their main ship. Remember, said Admiral Blake, who watched, from the doorway. Your job is to keep them talking, nothing more. Richard nodded. How long do you need? 8 hours. That's how long it will take to plant the device and get out. Across the room, Heather Davis checked her equipment one last time. She was a technical specialist with steady hands and a quick mind. She would be the one to connect Dr. Ward's quantum device to the alien ship's systems. Are you sure it will work? Heather asked Olivia Ward, who was making final adjustments to the small metal box. No, Olivia answered honestly, but it's the best chance we have. The plan was simple but dangerous. Richard would lead a diplomatic team to the Draconian command ship. Hidden among his staff would be a small strike team. While Richard kept the aliens busy with talks, the strike team would plant the quantum device near the ship's power core. The diplomatic shuttle launched from Earth 6 hours later. From the outside, it looked normal, but hidden inside its walls was Dr. Ward's device along with weapons for the strike team. As they approached the massive Draconian flagship, everyone grew quiet. The alien ship was enormous, at least 3 miles long. Its surface looked like scales, dark green and shining. They're hailing us, said the pilot. Richard took a deep breath. Tell them we're here to discuss terms of surrender. The shuttle docked inside a huge bay filled with strange ships and alien machinery. When the doors opened, hot, humid air rushed in. It smelled like a swamp. 6 Draconian guards met them. They stood 7 feet tall with muscular bodies covered in green scales. Their yellow eyes watched the humans with cold interest. Follow, said one in a hissing voice. High Commander waits. As they walked through the ship, the strike team members memorized the layout. Olivia had explained that the quantum device needed to be placed near the ship's power source for maximum effect. They entered a large room with a round table in the center. At the far end sat High Commander Krath, larger than the other Draconians with red markings on his scales. "So," he said, his voice deep and rumbling, "humans come to surrender." Richard smiled politely. "We come to discuss possibilities, Commander. Earth has much to offer as an ally rather than a conquered world." Krath made a sound like rough laughter. "Allies? You have nothing we need. Perhaps we could show you some of our technology? We may be less advanced, but sometimes fresh perspectives offer new ideas." The Draconian seemed amused. "Show me these ideas." As Richard began his prepared presentation, designed to be as long and boring as possible, the strike team made their move. While guards were focused on the meeting, they slipped away one by one, claiming to need restrooms or feeling ill from the alien atmosphere. In the ship's corridors, they met up at a predetermined point. Their leader, a naval officer named Peter Wright, checked his small scanner. "Power signatures are strongest that way," he whispered, pointing down a long hallway. 2 levels down. They moved carefully, using the strange architecture to hide. The ship seemed alive, with walls that pulsed slightly and lights that followed movement. Meanwhile, Heather Davis kept in contact with Dr. Ward through a tiny device in her ear. It used the same quantum principles as the weapon to communicate instantly with Earth without the Draconians detecting it. "We're approaching what looks like an engine room," she whispered. "Lots of power readings." On Earth, Olivia and Kevin watched their screens nervously. "Look for glowing crystals," Olivia said, "like the ones Commander Foster saw on Phobos, as The team moved deeper into the ship. They suddenly froze. Ahead of them was a large chamber filled with transparent containers. Inside each container was a strange, swirling substance. "What is that?" Peter asked, staring at the eerie sight. Heather scanned them. "Energy patterns. Complex ones. Almost like what?" "Like brain patterns," she said quietly. "I think they're minds, stored somehow." They took images to send back to Earth, then continued toward the power core. But as they turned a corner, they came face to face with 2 Draconian engineers. For a moment, both groups just stared at each other in surprise. Then Peter acted quickly. He threw a small device that released a cloud of gas. The Draconians collapsed, making horrible choking sounds. "Move," Peter ordered. "They'll find us soon." In the diplomatic room, Richard continued his lengthy presentation about Earth's agricultural systems. He could tell the Draconians were getting bored and impatient. "Perhaps we should take a short break," suggested Krath, clearly tired of the talk. "Oh, but I haven't even gotten to our water purification methods," Richard said quickly. "They're quite fascinating, especially when applied to swamp-like environments." The strike team finally reached the ship's power core. It was a massive chamber with a column of swirling energy in the center. Around it were the glowing crystals they had expected to find. "This is it," said Heather, taking out the quantum device. "I need 10 minutes to connect it properly." "Make it 5, said Peter, checking his watch. "We've already been gone too long." As Heather worked, attaching the device to the alien technology, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Voices shouted in the Draconian language, and heavy footsteps could be heard running. "They've found the engineers," Peter said grimly. "Hurry." Back in the diplomatic room, Richard saw Draconian guards rushing in. Krath rose to his full height, his yellow eyes now blazing with anger. "What have you done?" he demanded. Richard maintained his calm. "I don't understand, we're just talking." "Humans lie," roared the Draconian leader. "Guards, arrest them all." At the power core, Heather finished connecting the device. "It's done. Now we get out of here," said Peter. But as they turned to leave, 5 Draconian guards appeared at the doorway, weapons raised. "Surrender now," one hissed. Peter looked at his team, then at the quantum device now humming with power. "Run!" he shouted, firing his weapon at the ceiling. Debris fell, temporarily blocking the doorway. The team fled down another corridor, but more guards appeared ahead. They were trapped. We need to split up, Peter decided quickly. Heather, you have to get back to the shuttle. The rest of us will create a distraction. Heather shook her head. I won't leave you. The device is armed. Dr. Ward needs to know it's working. Someone has to tell her. Before she could argue further, Peter and the others charged toward the guards, weapons firing. Heather ran in the opposite direction, using the confusion to escape. In the diplomatic room, Richard and his team were surrounded by angry Draconians. Zeeskrath approached Richard, towering over him. Your deception will cost your world dearly, he hissed. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Lights flickered and a strange humming sound grew louder. On Earth, Olivia Ward's computers showed unusual readings. The quantum field is activating, she told Admiral Blake. But it's stronger than we expected. The Admiral looked concerned. What does that mean? I don't know. The field is expanding beyond the flagship. Back on the Draconian ship, Heather managed to reach the shuttle bay. As she ran toward the Earth shuttle, she saw Richard and the diplomatic team being marched in by guards. Run, Richard shouted when he saw her. Tell them it's working. Heather dashed for the shuttle as the guards fired at her. She made it inside just as the ship shuddered again, more violently this time. The Earth pilot didn't wait for orders. He launched immediately, blasting out of the bay as emergency lights flashed throughout the Draconian ship. As they flew away, Heather looked back. What she saw made no sense. The massive alien ship seemed to be bending somehow, as if reality itself was warping around it. The quantum device, she whispered. What have we done? Heather's shuttle raced away from the Draconian flagship. Through the window, she watched as the massive ship began to shimmer like a mirage in a desert. The other alien ships nearby seemed affected too, their shapes becoming less solid. What's happening to them? Asked the pilot, his voice shaking. The quantum device, Heather said. It's working, but not the way we expected. They were still too close. The shuttle shuddered as waves of strange energy washed over it. Systems flickered on and off. Alarms blared. We need to get farther away, Heather shouted. Maximum speed, as D. The engines pushed to full power. Something incredible happened behind them. The Draconian flagship seemed to fold in on itself, like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. The space around it bent and twisted in impossible ways. On Earth, Dr. Olivia Ward stared at her screens in disbelief. The quantum field is expanding far beyond our calculations, she told Admiral Blake. It's affecting all Draconian ships connected to the network. Is that good or bad? The Admiral asked. I don't know. We've never seen anything like this before. Kevin. Rodriguez typed frantically at his computer. The field is creating a feedback loop. It's growing stronger by itself. Olivia looked worried. We need to warn Heather's shuttle to get as far away as possible. Back in space, Heather sent urgent messages to Earth. The flagship is disappearing, not exploding, literally disappearing from normal space. Through the shuttle windows, they could see other Draconian ships being affected. Some tried to flee, but the strange effect moved faster than they could. One by one, the alien vessels began to shimmer and fold, vanishing from normal space. This is amazing, whispered the pilot. Heather wasn't sure if amazing was the right word. What they had done was beyond their understanding. Had they destroyed the Draconians or merely sent them somewhere else? On the Draconian flagship, chaos reigned. Alarms blared in alien languages as crew members rushed through corridors that seemed to stretch and contract. Reality itself was breaking down. In a holding cell, Richard Collins felt the floor beneath him vibrate. The walls around him wavered like they were made of water instead of metal. The Draconian guard outside his cell let out a terrified hiss and ran away. Richard wasn't alone in the cell. 2 members of the strike team had been captured with him. One of them, a young soldier named Ben Wright, looked at the dissolving wall with wide eyes. I think we should get out of here, he said. They stepped through the fading wall and into a corridor. Other prisoners were escaping too. Richard recognized some of them as humans, but others were clearly alien, species he had never seen before. The Draconians have been doing this across the galaxy, he realized. taking prisoners from many worlds. As they made their way through the disintegrating ship, they came across Peter, who had somehow survived the earlier firefight. "The shuttle bay," Peter said when he saw them. "It's our only chance." But reaching the shuttle bay wouldn't be easy. The ship's structure was falling apart around them. Corridors ended in strange, swirling voids. Gravity shifted unpredictably. In one chamber, they found High Commander Z's Krath. The mighty Draconian was no longer frightening. He cowered in a corner, his scales losing their color. "What have you done?" he hissed when he saw the humans. "You've torn the fabric of space-time." Richard had no answer. They left the alien leader to his fate and pressed on. On Earth, Olivia watched as her instruments detected massive gravitational waves rippling through the solar system. The entire Draconian fleet, 342 warships, was being affected by the quantum field. "This could damage Earth too," she warned. "The waves are getting stronger." Admiral Blake ordered all space stations evacuated. Cities around the world prepared for possible earthquakes or tsunamis. People gathered in streets and parks to watch the sky, where strange lights had begun to appear. In the bunker, Kevin made a surprising discovery. "The field isn't destroying the ships," he said. "It's shifting them into another dimension." Olivia looked at his data. "A parallel reality? Is that even possible?" "The math says it is. Our device created a bridge between dimensions and the Draconian network spread it to all their ships. In space, Heather's shuttle finally reached a safe distance. From there, they watched in awe as the entire Draconian fleet seemed to fold in on itself. Ship after ship vanished from normal space, leaving only strange distortions where they had been. The process took exactly 23 minutes. When it was over, not a single Draconian vessel remained in the solar system. "We did it," Heather whispered. "They're gone." But gone where? And would they stay gone? These questions hung in the air, unanswered. The shuttle's communication system suddenly crackled to life. "This is Transport Vessel Freedom, requesting assistance. We have escaped prisoners from the Draconian flagship." Heather couldn't believe. "Richard, is that you?" "Yes, and about 30 others. Some human, some not. We managed to steal a transport before everything went crazy." Within hours, both vessels were on their way back to Earth. News of the Draconian fleet's disappearance spread rapidly around the world. People celebrated in the streets, but scientists and military leaders remained cautious. At the underground bunker, Admiral Blake met with Olivia and her team. "I need answers," she said. "Where did they go? Can they come back?" Olivia looked tired but determined. "Based on our readings, the quantum field created a pocket dimension, a bubble of different reality. And the Draconians are trapped there?" "Yes, but there's something strange about how time works in this bubble. Our calculations suggest that for every day that passes here, only seconds pass there." Kevin nodded. "From their perspective, they just arrived. They're probably still trying to figure out what happened." "So we've bought time," said the Admiral. "How much?" Olivia shrugged. "Years, maybe decades, but eventually they'll find a way back. They have the technology and the knowledge. Then, we better use this time wisely." As Heather's shuttle approached Earth, she took a moment to look at her home planet. It seemed smaller somehow, more fragile. Yet humanity had just defeated the most powerful enemy it had ever faced. Richard stolen. Draconian transport followed behind them. Inside were beings from other worlds that had been conquered by the Draconians. They would have stories to tell, technologies to share, and warnings about what might still be out there among the stars. When the two ships landed, they were met by crowds of cheering people. For the first time since the Draconians appeared, there was hope. But in her lab, Olivia Ward continued to study the readings from the quantum event. Something wasn't right. The pocket dimension wasn't as isolated as they had first thought. There were connections, thin threads of quantum entanglement linking it to normal space. And along those threads, she detected faint signals, data, communication. The Draconians might be gone, but they weren't defeated. Not yet. 6 months passed since the day the Draconian fleet vanished. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Alan Foster, who had been presumed dead on Phobos, returned 1 month after the Draconian disappearance. A group of aliens who had been prisoners of the Draconians found him barely alive in an abandoned section of the base. They brought him back to Earth on another stolen ship. Now fully recovered, Alan stood in a new office with large windows overlooking the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Blake had just pinned new insignia to his uniform. Commander of the Extraterrestrial Defense Initiative, he said, reading the official document. That's quite a title. Admiral Blake smiled, something she did more often these days. You earned it. And we need someone who's seen what's out there firsthand. Outside the window, construction crews worked on massive new buildings. The EDI headquarters was just one of many new projects. All around the world, humans and their new alien allies worked together, sharing knowledge and preparing. Any news? From Dr. Ward? Alan asked. See for yourself, said the Admiral, leading him to an elevator. She's waiting for you. They descended deep underground to where Olivia Ward had established her new research center. The facility was much larger than her old lab, filled with both human and alien scientists. Olivia was in a central room, studying a three-dimensional projection of swirling energy. Next to her stood Kevin Rodriguez and an alien being with blue skin and 4 arms. Alan, Olivia called when she saw him. Perfect timing. We've made a breakthrough. Alan studied the projection. Is that the pocket dimension? Olivia nodded. Yes, we've been monitoring it since the event. The time difference is even more dramatic than we thought. For every month that passes here, only about 10 minutes pass there. So, the Draconians are still in the first hour of being trapped, Kevin finished. They have no idea what happened yet. The blue alien, whose name was Nixis Tara, pointed at different parts of the projection with 2 of her 4 hands. But the barrier between dimensions is not permanent. Already we see small ruptures forming. How long do we have? Alan asked. Olivia looked serious. Best estimate, 50 years. Maybe a century if we're lucky. A century to prepare for their return, Alan said quietly. More than time, said Admiral Blake. We have knowledge now. Information from 17 other species who fought the Draconians and lost. She led them to another section of the facility where Richard Collins was working with a diverse group of aliens. They were examining star charts recovered from the Draconian base on Phobos. Richard smiled when he saw Alan. Commander Foster, good to see you up and about. What are you working on? Alan asked. Maps, Richard said, gesturing to the glowing star charts. The Draconians had information on thousands of star systems. We're identifying other worlds that might help us or threaten us. One chart showed a spiral galaxy with several points marked in red. These are other predatory species, explained Richard. Civilizations as dangerous as the Draconians. Some of them might have detected what happened here. You think they'll come to investigate? Eventually, we should be ready before they arrive. In another section of the facility, Heather Davis worked with Laura Phillips and engineers from 3 different alien species. They were studying pieces of Draconian technology recovered from Phobos. Their ships are amazing, Heather told Alan, as he toured the area. The quantum drives alone could revolutionize how we travel through space. Laura nodded. We're already building prototypes. Smaller vessels at first, but eventually, ships that can take us to other star systems. How soon? Asked Alan. 2 years for the first test flights, 5 for a proper fleet. In the months since the Draconian disappearance, humanity had come together in a way no one thought possible. Old conflicts seemed petty in the face of what they now knew existed beyond their world. Resources once spent on fighting each other were redirected to defense and exploration. The aliens rescued from Draconian captivity provided invaluable help. They came from worlds scattered across the galaxy, each with their own technologies and knowledge. Some had been fighting the Draconians for generations before their planets fell. Most chose to remain on Earth, forming new communities and integrating with human society. Others worked to rebuild ships that could take them back to their home worlds, carrying warnings and new allies. As evening fell, Alan stood on a balcony overlooking the research center's main hangar. Below him, workers swarmed around the frame of a massive ship, unlike anything built on Earth before. Admiral Blake joined him at the railing. "Impressive, isn't it?" "What is it?" Alan asked. "Our future. Dr. Ward calls it the Quantum Vanguard. It's designed to use the same principles as her device, but for exploration rather than defense." The ship's hull gleamed in the lights of the hangar. It was beautiful in a strange way, combining human design with alien influences. "We've come so far in just 6 months," Alan said. "Imagine where we'll be in 5 years or 50. The Admiral looked thoughtful. "The Draconians came to conquer us. Instead, they gave us the stars." In her private lab, Olivia made a final adjustment to a small device on her desk. It looked similar to the quantum weapon that had sent the Draconian fleet away, but with significant modifications. Kevin watched her work. "Are you sure about this? The calculations are still theoretical." "Theory becomes practice through testing," Olivia replied. "Besides, we need to know if it's possible." The device was designed to open a tiny, controlled window into the pocket. Dimension. Not enough to let anything through, but enough to observe what was happening there. As Olivia activated it, a small projection appeared above the device. It showed the Draconian flagship frozen in a moment of distortion. Inside, the alien crew moved in extreme slow motion, still reacting to the first effects of the quantum field. "It works," Olivia whispered. "We can watch them and learn from them," added Kevin. "Everything they do to try to escape will teach us how to keep them trapped." Later that night, Alan Foster stood outside the facility looking up at the stars. They seemed different now that he knew what was out there. Both more frightening and more inviting. A shooting star streaked across the sky. Once, people made wishes on such sights. Now they wondered if it might be a ship from another world. In the pocket dimension, trapped between moments of normal time, the Draconian fleet remained. From their perspective, the strange effect that had captured them was still unfolding. High Commander Ziz Krath still stood on his bridge, watching in horror as reality twisted around him. The Draconians would eventually understand what had happened. They would find ways to study the quantum barrier, to test it, and ultimately, to break it. When they returned to normal space, they would seek revenge against the humans who had humiliated them. But when that day came, whether in 50 years or 100, they would not find the same Earth they had tried to conquer. They would find a world ready for them, a humanity that had grown beyond its cradle with ships and weapons and allies of its own. On his desk, Alan Foster had a small display showing the construction schedule for Earth's new defense fleet. The first ship would be ready for testing next month. Its name was already painted on the hull in large white letters. Remembrance. The Draconians had come to make humanity extinct. Instead, they had made humanity stronger. When they finally returned, the hunters would become the hunted. And somewhere in the depths of space, other civilizations received strange signals, echoes of the quantum event that had swallowed an entire invasion fleet. Some would be curious, others would be afraid. All would soon learn that Earth was no longer an easy target. It was the home of the species that had made the mighty Draconian fleet vanish without a trace.